Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cabral Concept. We're here today with our Total Wellness Tuesday episode 2230. And of course, as always, if you'd like to follow along, you can go to stephencabral.com/podcast. Just scroll down to episode 2230, or to go direct to that episode, just type in the show number, the podcast number at the end of the URL. So stephencabral.com/ and then type in any number you'd like. In this case, 2230. Today's show, though, is going to be a fun one. It's a little different. It's a little off the beaten path of what we typically do, but I love being able to vary these topics. That's why I love being able to do a daily show. People ask me all the time, how do you come up with a different topic every day? The truth is that my interest in the health field, in terms of nutrition, diet, exercise, stress reduction, toxin removal, rest, emotional balance, scientifically based supplements, success mindset, that's part of the de-stress protocol, right? Well, it varies so widely, and you can get into psychology, and in the case today, you can actually get into people's occupations and how does that affect overall longevity, mortality, linked to stress, right? So that's what I want to share with you here today. And the funny thing is, I'm like I have a bit of many of these. And so what I like to do is I say, okay, I need to work on me because of my stress, my occupation. And again, I always say, I love what I do. I truly do. Like that. I'm a very fortunate individual. I get to do exactly what I want to do in life. It doesn't mean that it's easy. Doesn't mean that I don't work really hard at it, but I get to do what I love to do, right? And that, again, that doesn't always mean that it's easy. And that factors into today's show. So we're going to go through the 7 occupations that age you the fastest. Now, the good news is there's a secret to not allowing them age you that quickly. And we'll start to go through that towards the end of the show. Today's show, probably going to be a bit more of a short one, because tomorrow, I want you to tune back in. Tomorrow, I'm going over really the foundation of my nutrition, what we do in our private practice, and a diet plan that has over 5,000 studies on PubMed alone, showing it to be the greatest and most powerful anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory diet plan out there that really all diet plans should be modeled around. So tomorrow's show, a little longer show. Today's show, quick, to the point, but it is important information, because if you happen to fall within one of these 7 occupations, like I do, you want to make sure that you're counteracting all of that stress that can lead to, again, a much faster aging. All right, so let's get into it. This was a study that looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 main jobs or occupations. With the last one, and I'll just let the cat out of the bag here since I'm going over the top 7 that age you the fastest, the last one's retired. The last one doesn't age you very fast at all. That's the amazing thing. Now, again, this is always this has a wide variation. So if you've ever seen, and I'm going to link this up for you. So you can head over to stephencabral.com/2230. And if you're watching this right on YouTube, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining the community. Hopefully you've liked, you've subscribed. We would love for you to do that. Every day, a brand new video coming out. So here's the thing, though. I'm going to link up what a scatter plot graph looks like. If you've never seen a scatter plot graph, they're one of my favorite graphs to look at while doing research. And the reason is it shows you the variation between the high and the low. So meaning like for the least stressed occupation, being retired, right? Because you're retired from your occupation, you don't see a wild high, like super high. In this case, aging you, the age rate was 1.4. So like for every year you live, you're aging 1.4 years. That was the highest in the study. And then the lowest is 0.7. So for every year you live, well, you're only living 0.7 of that, or you're only aging 0.7 of that. Now for retirees, there on the scatter plot, all of them were between, let's see here, 0.85 and 1.2, with one outlier at about 1.25. So most of them were right around the mean of 1, like a 1-for-1 ratio of aging. And that was actually the best on this graph of the top 10 people. So, well, how do we know that they're aging at 1.4? Well, the people who were aging the least quickly, if that is proper English, were retirees, right? So that's what they based it off of. Now, everybody else was degrees higher. And that's what I want to share with you here today, plus one occupation that was wildly low and wildly high, which means that huge variance in whether people felt like they were aging faster or not as fast based on overall stress. All right. So this whole study is done on occupation-derived stress and how it impacts aging, because we know it impacts oxidation, inflammation, stress hormones, impact brain cognitive abilities and neuroplasticity and so much more. All right, so let's get into it and I'll kind of explain it along the way as well. If you want to see the graph, again, episode 2230, and we'll pop that up on the screen too as I'm talking about it from time to time. All right, so the job that ages you the second least amount, so we'll get to the top seven in a moment, is a business person. Right? A business person. So what does that mean? Well, a business person is someone that goes to work. They have a 9 to 5 every single day, right? Every single day. This was number 9 on the list. And they are essentially, again, and I don't mean this in any derogatory fashion, but they are handling a set of tasks on a given day. But then at the end of that day, they leave their stress at work. So again, you could take any business occupation. This is kind of just business in general. Let's say you are, I have no idea because I'm like the worst at like thinking about outside jobs beyond my own little reality here. But let's say that you are working at, well, I don't know. Let's say you're working at a bank and you go to the bank and you check your email when you go in the morning, and then, like, let's just say you're a, I don't know, bank manager or something, and then you check your email at the end of the day, you take your phone calls during the day, but then when you leave the bank, you're no longer checking your emails or your voice messages until you get in the next day, because there's nothing that's going to happen that would be so dramatic that you need to take it home at night. Again, and I know some people do, and that's why there's variances in this chart, right? But they had very little variance, business people. And so basically what I'm saying is, whatever business it is, I don't know if bank was even a good example, you're able to leave your stress at work on a daily basis. All right. So that's why it wasn't part of the top 7. Now, number 8, the only other one that I'm not including in my rapid aging ones is a homemaker. Again, this is kind of like old school words. I don't think anybody says homemaker anymore, but someone whose job, we'll put it this way, like there is a full-time job, and I like to typically say it's the most important job on the planet, is someone that cares for the family. Probably, maybe there's some children in the family. I don't know if there's pets, especially like my pet now, he's like, in French Bulldog years, he's like 110 years old. He needs to go out like every hour. I mean, he's a lot of work, right? So we'll just say a homemaker, I think, would be the person that's really tending for the family. It's their full-time role. Maybe they're even helping an aging parent as well. Now, this is typically a very stressful position. Now, that's why it's still, it's still on the list. Okay, it's obviously well above retirees, but it's still on the list. And there is a high level of enjoyment, meaning lower stress, and it was the most. Meaning like it had some outliers on the scatter plot here of people feeling the least stressed as a homemaker. And again, I'm just using that term because I think it's from like the 1960s, right? I'm using that because that's what it says on the study. But let's just say it's the head of the household, the house manager. It's the person that runs the family. Some of those were the least stressed, and just a couple up above that 1.2. All right, so now let's get into our top 7 from number 7 down to number 1. Number 7 was a business owner. This is a person that actually has their own shop, right? So it's someone that, let's say they own a local wellness spa. They own a local personal training studio. You can see how my head is always on health in general. But let's say they own a local real estate firm or mortgage broker company, whatever it might be. They're a business owner, right? So really, really important. They own their own business. It doesn't mean that they have a lot of employees under them. It means they run their own shop. So we've got down the street from us, we've got a really nice little, it's just like a little wellness spa. They have no real employees, but they have an infrared sauna. They've got some compression leggings. They have, what else do they have? They have some hydro-based massage, so not an actual massage therapist. I prefer a massage therapist, but they have that. And they have a float tank as well. So that's what it is. And it's basically one person and they run the show and that's their business. They are a business owner, right? So there's some stress, right? There's no doubt about it. And that's because they're running their own shop. They've got rent. They've got leases on their equipment. They've got to show up every day. They've got to be cordial to all of the customers coming in, right? Those types of things. So business owner was number 7 on the list. Now, one step up in stress from that is an entrepreneur. And you might say, well, what's the difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur? Typically, a business owner you could classify as, well, this person owns their own business, right? But they might be a solopreneur. They might be running their own shop as, let's say, a health coach, right? Like they're running their own shop, or a personal trainer, or a real estate agent, right? So they're running their own show. Now, an entrepreneur would typically then have a team of employees as a business owner under them. So the entrepreneur is running their own show as a consultant, or typically, again, they have a team under them, which makes them an entrepreneur because they are creating jobs for other people. So now, an entrepreneur was the second most interesting one because they didn't have wild lows in terms of low stress or necessarily wild highs. And here's why I believe that to be. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, it's all they know, meaning they can't work for other people. Like this is what they do. They work for themselves. They're creative. They like to come up with ideas. They like to hire other people. They like to develop teams. They see a need in the marketplace or they want to be of great service to the world and they develop something. And so they love what they do. And so it's stressful, but they don't have the wild highs and wild lows. That's what I've seen. Okay. Again, that's just my theory. But the graph certainly, like everything's pretty tight between like 1.15 down to like 0.85 or so. Okay, so next up, what is this? Number 5? Number 5 is a CEO. Now, I thought that this would probably be a little higher, but it's not. CEO has decent discrepancy, but not wildly high, not wildly low, but certainly aging faster than the entrepreneur business owner. Why would that be? Well, a CEO is overseeing a company now. So they are overseeing typically even the other positions like a COO or CMO or CTO or others. And then they're overseeing the teams below them, which might be like vice presidents of the company and then directors and managers and all the employees. And essentially the fate of the company really resides with the decisions and the strategy that this person makes. And so they're not only responsible for all of the products and goods or services they create, and the delivery of those, even though they're not the ones implementing it, but they're responsible for the customer's happiness, but also their team's happiness. So there's certainly a fair amount of stress there, and I can see why they put CEO there as number 5. Number 4, definitely believe it, certainly believe it, and this is a pretty dense scatter plot here for physician. So a doctor is number 4 on the stress scale. Now, this is why a doctor's average age used to be in their mid-50s. Now, they smoke cigarettes quite a bit to reduce the stress. They ate really poorly to reduce, because they wanted comfort food. But there's a lot of stress. There's obviously a lot of stress being a doctor. Why? Because you're dealing with people's lives for the most part, right? Literally with a lot of medical doctors, it is life and death. And that's why, even though I give medical doctors sometimes a hard time because I just want them to better inform their patients and to look at things beyond pharmaceuticals, I do understand how important their role is. There's no doubt about it. Many of my colleagues are MDs. It's very, very important. And many of them even work in emergency medicine. So there's a lot of stress that goes along with being a doctor. That's why sometimes you need to give your doctor a little bit of a pass if they were a little short with you that day. Now, I know they shouldn't be, but they're oftentimes seen, especially an MD, 20 people or more a day, patients. And that's because it's dictated by billing health insurance and what you're allowed to see people with and all that. So It's a tough one. There's no doubt about it. So physicians, that's in there. All right. The next one is attorneys. So attorneys, this was a very tight scatter plot. There wasn't, if I'm surprised, there wasn't massive stress on this one, like higher or faster stress, faster aging through stress, or much lower. Very small, very tight scatter plot, and that is for attorneys. And of course, attorneys are also dealing with maybe not people's lives, but they're dealing with their livelihood a lot of the times, whether it's insurance, like purchasing a home, probably the biggest investment a person will make, setting up a will, a trust. If you do the wrong thing, you are liable. Not only is your client particularly liable for the decisions that you make as well and the advice that you're giving, but you are as a practitioner as well, because you are literally a doctor, right? You're what is it, a JD? Is that what it is? Yeah, I mean, a lawyer is literally, that's what they graduate with. I forget what it is. I think it's JD. Okay. So that's an attorney. Number 2 on the list is an engineer. And this scatter plot is wild, which I totally expected. I mean, I really expected. Theirs is the highest that it peaked out in terms of stress, which is aging at 1.4. But the mean, again, the mean is essentially the middle if we look at what the middle of these predominantly are. And that's why engineer came in second. So engineers, what are they dealing with that could be so stressful? Again, physicians dealing with people's lives, attorneys, livelihood, engineers, massive projects that could endanger the lives of other people. Now, not all engineers are doing that, of course, but engineer structuring for a bridge, a home, any type of engineering project like that can be very stressful. It really can. So there's a lot that goes into being an engineer. I mean, all of those people that are pretty intelligent people, and they also have to be able to deal with a lot of stress. So self-employed comes in at number 1. Self-employed, you might say, well, isn't that the entrepreneur or the CEO? It is. It's what these people identified with, which is what I found particularly interesting as well. But the self-employed people who identified as self-employed also had the greatest mean in terms of occupation-derived stress impacting their aging. And it's interesting because I've been self-employed since I was literally 22 or 20. Yeah, I guess I was employed at 22, self-employed by 24. And that was it. Since 24 years old, I've been self-employed. However, I never really looked at myself as self-employed, which is interesting, right? I've never associated with self-employed. I've more associated maybe with an entrepreneur as someone that is just trying to create something that I think will better the world. That's literally it. Like I try to teach, I try to create things that I feel people need, that help me in my life, and I believe that it may be helping them. And so when I look at it, I don't believe that I have those wild fluctuations and higher stress that a self-employed person does, because I believe the difference is in the mindset. A self-employed person, I think that they put a much greater amount of pressure on themselves when they identify as that. Now, of course, I'm self-employed right now, but it's like, well, I'm not. Like I'm part of a team. That's how I look at myself. I'm part of a company. I'm part of a team. I'm part of a movement. That's more of how I identify. So I think the mindset is crucial in your occupation, and that is exactly what I wanted to leave you with, because all of these occupations, all the way down from retired, all the way up to self-employed, there were different levels on this scatter plot where people identified with stress. And each one of these had identification of 0.85 or below. That means that these people in any one of these jobs could identify as being less stressful. Now you might say, well, their job might just be less stressful. Maybe that's the case, maybe. But so much of life is how we view it, right? It's the lens through which we view it. Some of that has to do with our upbringing, our culture, our childhood, and other stressors too, like monetary factors. All of that is true. But I do want to share with you that it's how we view our life and our job that increases our overall stress. So if you're in a particular position right now where you are very stressed, I can't recommend enough, no matter what job you're in, of looking at ways to reduce stress. That could be going for a walk. It could be exercise. It could be music. It could be dance. It could be talking with a friend. Find the things that help you to decrease stress. Of course, I've written about many of these in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect. I have 2,000 plus podcasts, many of which do talk about stress. So please do feel free. Go back to stephencabral.com/podcast. You're welcome to check out shows on reducing stress as well. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if you identify with any one of these 10, especially the top 7 most stressful ones, and let me know how you would rate your overall stress level. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve.